स्पिरिचुअलिज्म के दो पाथ होते हैं. वन इज द इनर मेडिटेटिव पाथ विच इज निवृत्ति, गोइंग इन, turning away from our sense organs. And the other is the pravrittik part, which is turning towards life through our sense organs. Breath control is emotional control. Breath control is life control. बच्चे को चलना सिखाते हैं, खाना सिखाते हैं, सांस लेना नहीं सिखाते. Breath is the path to consciousness. Karma is consequences. It's consequences. You know, I must do what I must do. Right now, I must also be ready for the consequences.
A psychology graduate, she cleared her IAS exams only to give them up for the cause of love. Well, she works extensively for the social upliftment of children and is the wife of the late Himanshu Roy IPS. She is also the elder and loving sister, Didi to Amish ji, the blockbuster Bahubali author of India, who creates hysteria each time his series is announced. From Meluha, the very famous Shiva trilogy, to the Ramchandra series. The list is really long. The book we will be discussing today with her is going to be in one of my favorite bookshelves called Dharm, co-authored by Amish and Bhavna Roy. Without much ado, let's deep dive into this very meaningful conversation that is going to change a little bit in your soul today. Let's go and meet Bhavna Roy. Bhavna Di, as we all love to call you, welcome to the PVT show where we have conversations that truly energize one's mind. I'm so grateful, so grateful to be having you on this episode. And this is a very special episode for me also because we have a huge lineup of books here, but this is one of the best books out in the market. The book Dharm, which you have co-authored with your brother Amish. And I can rave about this book for in the entire podcast, but I want, because I have you with me, I want you to tell us what led you to write something like this for the world.
Poonam, it's lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for your kind words as well as your wonderful presence. Thank you. Dharm, how did it begin? Actually, the story of Dharm began a very long time ago, around 2013-14. Let me take you through the entire story. Around 2013-14, actually, Meluha was out, Nagas was out, and Vayuputra had just been released. And we were sitting conversing one evening, the family, and my brother Anish suggested that Amish, your books, this Shiva trilogy, it's a story front end and the back end is philosophy. Why don't Bhavna and you work together? Philosophy is my trip. Yeah. So he said, why don't Bhavna and you work together and reverse the process? Bring philosophy front end, keep a storyline, so that it's readable at the back end. Thus, Amish and I began. I said to him, look, I don't know, I don't understand the story bit, but philosophy I can write. So I initially produced, a sort of a potha of around 25, pages, which was pure philosophy. I sent it to Amish and he said, Didi, honestly, मेरा छोटा भाई है, 8 साल छोटा है, आदर बहुत करता है. But we are friends also. So he called me up and said, Didi, it's not happening. This is textbookish. It's very academic. We have to make it readable. So remember, Dada said कि इसमें थोड़ा story भी होनी चाहिए. I said, इसमें story कैसे डालूं? So he said, fine, you send this to me and let me work on it. Amish's genius is the 4 lovely characters that he created. That was a philosophical sort of a treatise that I had created based on the Mahabharata. And he created these lovely characters, Lopamudra and Dharmaraj, the old couple, and Gargi, their daughter, and the husband of Gargi, Nachiket.
I love Nachiket.
You do?
Yeah. In fact, I was telling Amish, we are remembering him so much that I am going to play Nachiket when I'm sitting with Bhavna.
Okay.
He's the Gen Z, the real young mind who's so inquisitive and who wants to ask the right questions. And then what happened?
So, when you read our next book, Idols, you'll find that Nachiket has become more complex and has deepened. I wonder what you will feel, the feedback that you will give about Nachiket after you read Idols. But coming back to this, he created these four characters, and they are from our ancient books. These characters, they're not casual, these names. Yes. And Amish put the entire treatise into different mouths of these characters. And he created, he fleshed out these characters. They became human beings. And then, of course, the two fro happened. Then, Poonam, my husband fell ill in 2016. And this project was, just, put to the side. We fought a battle, for 2.5 years. And then I lost my husband. And after which, really, I had checked out from living. Himanshu to me was life. And he went, and you don't expect to find yourself alive when life is over, right? And I was alive when life was over. So I drowned for quite a bit. He went in 2018, and I had really checked out from life. COVID began, and, I wasn't the only one floundering. I was married to, Lord Krishna himself. I feel sometimes. Everyone loved him. Everyone loved him. And so did my family. Amish himself was floundering. He went into a writer's block for the first time in his life. He wasn't able to write after Himanshu went. He began to write, around January, February 2020 again. And a couple of months later, he called me and said, Didi, remember that project that we were working on, Dharm? Why don't you start working on it, again? And really, that was like, a lifeline that Amish threw at me. And I grabbed it. I worked on this book for 12 to 16 hours a day. I was doing nothing but just working on this because, it was a lifeline. It kept me afloat. And so the book was born.
This is, Bhapaji, this is not a book. I really want every single person alive to be reading this book because this is not coming from... I must have read so many, by the virtue of I coming from the corporate world. For me, for my progress in career, it is always you pick up a business book, or you would end up going to Harvard Business Reviews, or you would end up just reading something which is related to. But when you are in a creative field, and everybody in today's time is in a creative field because the world is completely changing. It's a paradigm shift in what, even in businesses, how businesses used to happen. This, I believe, is not a book. This is actually a beautiful management thinking, book for leadership. Because somewhere when you know that this is the right path to take, and you don't know how, as a business leader, I can take that right path because I have to keep people along with me. And how do I convince everyone to be with me when it is a difficult path? Any good path, right path is difficult. At least that much understanding I have in life. I keep telling people, whoever I have met, that I have to meet the authors of this book. Reason being, जैसे हम कहते हैं ना, चाय हम एक होता है जो चाय पीते हैं और एक होता है चाय को चुस्की लेके पीना. मैंने वो चुस्की ले लेके इस बुक को पढ़ा है. And the proof is really, if I can just put it for the cameras here, every single line. Because it's not about philosophy, it's not about backdrop of... In corporate world, we say that we are chasing goals and targets and money. And when you are close to retirement, look for philosophy. I want you to thrash this thought today because a book like this can really open up horizons of thinking. Subconscious thinking for leaders to look for ideas and solutions. You think philosophy is something which is for retired people?
Poonam, to begin with, thank you for those kind words. A book is to an author what a child is. to a parent. And, there's nothing more delightful to a parent than one's child being appreciated. So thank you so much.
Rightfully, absolutely rightfully. Whatever I'm saying is absolutely true.
Having said that, first, these two magical words, dharma and karma, Hindu philosophy can be, if at all captured, it can be captured very wonderfully with these two magical words, dharma and karma. But coming back to philosophy, because, we Indians don't have a copyright on philosophy. Philosophy has had its adherence for millennia.
Yes.
And quite frankly, in the ancient world, philosophy and living wasn't separate at all. Philosophy and living was completely intertwined in the world as well as India. Pythagoras in around the 3rd century BC had set up an academy for philosophy school. And it is said that a student, when he entered the philosophy school, पहले साल उसे सिर्फ झाड़ू लगानी पड़ती थी कि पहले साल इन द फिलॉसफी स्कूल आप सिर्फ झाड़ू लगाओ और साफ सफाई करो, और उस साल के बाद फिर पाइथागोरस सोचेंगे कि आप लर्निंग के लिए विंडो खुली क्या, नहीं तो आप झाड़ू लगाओ दूसरे साल भी. व्हाट इज द आइडिया बिहाइंड इट? ह्यूमिलिटी and working your mind around the ego. हमारे जो गुरुकुल होते थे, श्री राम गए ऋषि वशिष्ठ के गुरुकुल में, श्री कृष्ण गए ऋषि संदीपानी के गुरुकुल में, सीता माँ गई श्वेतकेतु ऋषि श्वेतकेतु के गुरुकुल में, and they had to do all the housework, as we all know. And this tradition of gurukuls continued almost till the 17th century in India. What happened around 500 years ago, 600 years ago, during the period of the Renaissance, in Europe, is philosophy altogether suddenly became an intellectual subject. There was a complete severing, a divorce from living. Philosophy was separated from life. Immanuel Kant, started talking about the hypothetical imperative and categorical imperative. Thomas Hobbes started wondering if man is born brutal and he becomes good, whereas Jacques Rousseau said, no, man is born good and becomes bad, becomes brutal. So these intellectual discussions में ही philosophy busy हो गई. And this has been a door for the past 500, 600 years. Before which it was, philosophy. Talk to a cab driver in Mumbai. He is one of the biggest philosophers you will meet in life. And philosophy is reflection. Philosophy is the ability to be able to step back from moments in your life and reflect upon those moments and make your life, polishing your life. Philosophy is like a tool that helps, polish a diamond, a piece of diamond, and make it shine more and more and more, the diamond of our life. How do we separate philosophy from living?
So true and so well said. So when it comes to business people, and I will bring you back again to the same, target audience, because they are going to be watching this, and they need to also understand that philosophy is something which, though not taught in schools, because Gurukul, it used to be there. That's what I feel, that you think that education system needs a little tweaking, because somewhere with the fast life, we are not able to, I don't want to get into the numbers of how many people are depressed, how many people are going through COVID-related issues with their career. And there are several issues with everyone. But your book empowers a person to think in that moment and think rationally and be rational also. Because Dharmaraj, one of my favorite characters, and I said Nachiket is the questioning man, so I'm going to be doing that. So whenever there is a problem, I saw in the book, Dharmaraj would come and say that, why don't you switch your thinking and look at this aspect like this? You think philosophy teaches, it's a tool to understand how to switch mind and think in a different way. Is it safe to say that?
Absolutely. For instance, the issues that we have discussed in the book, envy. What is envy? What is jealousy? What is loyalty? What is duty? What is humility? What is rage? What is grief? These things impinge upon leadership and the business world also, na? So really, Poonam, there is no separating life and philosophy if you want to live an enriched and meaningful life. For instance, अभी I must share this with you कि आप जो ये देखेंगे ये तो आपको तो कंटिन्यूस लगेगा, लेकिन हम ने ये रिकॉर्ड किया था और बम्बई है, गर्मी बहुत है, तो हुआ क्या कि ये बैटरी हीटअप हो गई बहुत, तो बीच में हमें रुकना पड़ा और चिराग बड़ा नर्वस हो गया बेचारा कि नहीं आप रुकिए और ये यहाँ थोड़ा ठीक करना पड़ेगा, फिर यहाँ से कुछ निकाला वहाँ डाला, वहाँ से कुछ निकाला यहाँ डाला, कर रहे थे सब। एसी ऑन रखें कि एसी ऑफ रखें, हमारे लिए नहीं तो भाई बैटरी के लिए ऑन रखें। इन सब चीज़ों में Poonam and I were sitting here, and both Poonam and I have a philosophical bent of mind, I think. And both of us were not perturbed by it at all. We were joking, we were bantering. In fact, Poonam even managed to make everyone relaxed because the thing over here was becoming nervous. And without bantering, सबको relax भी कर डाला. Actually, the two of us could have, or even one of us could have shifted into a completely different zone and made ourselves stressful. And this would have not had the rust that it has right now. And this is all about the art of being able to not just swim in the river of life, but to swim in the river of life and also at the same time observe yourself swimming. In that case, you become the master of the events and the challenges that are being presented around you, instead of an event like this, which was the fault of nobody. It was just a battery that had heated up. That event could have become the master of all, or at least some of us.
Right. This brings me to think, what happens when emotions are involved? Our emotions were involved because we were interrupted. A little bit of emotions, but we did not deploy a lot of emotions to it. When a lot of emotions are involved, then how do you disassociate yourself from a situation? Is there a tool? Is philosophy serves as that tool?
I think, okay, let me put things this way. Spiritualism के दो path होते हैं. One is the inner meditative path, which is nivrutti, knowing in, turning away from our sense organs. And the other is the pravrittik part, which is turning towards life through our sense organs. ये जो निवृत्ति का जो पथ है, ये कुछ लोगों के लिए है, बहुत कठिन है, बुद्ध भगवान के लिए. हम सब प्रवृत्ति के प्राणी हैं, because we access life through our sense organs. And our emotional body interacts with the stimuli that is coming in through our sense organs, and our emotions are enmeshed with our experiences. In this pravrutik part, I do feel worship. I would advocate idol worship. It helps us not only deal with the specific emotions of grief, of anger, of fear, but also enables our understanding, our emotions. Emotions need respect. We live at a time when, reason is reigning supreme. Logic and reason. I'm not demeaning reason and logic. It's very, very important. But emotions are where wisdom lies. There's logic and reason. We also need a marriage between reason and wisdom. And what enables wisdom is emotions. We need an understanding of our emotional body.
This is opening like 1,000 doors in front of me. I just want to run into several doors here because, oh my God, this is the depth of life, because you just said that wisdom is via emotions. And when we are emotionally charged up, we end up taking decisions that most of the times are not the right decisions. So I read in the book Dharamraj ji explaining perfectly the bad decisions and the right decisions. Then he goes on to say there are no bad or right or ugly decisions. All decisions are, like, for example, in one of the chapters. Sorry for revealing the book, but I'm a fan. Lopamudra goes on to explain to Gargi, if I'm not wrong, that Draupadi lived with 5 husbands. And she lived happily. So, dharma, not dharma, ultimately it is her conclusive life and her decisions. So how do you make peace when you have taken a difficult decision in life? Or most of the successful people and sometimes unsuccessful people would also walk that path. But how do you make peace to a difficult decision, which constantly world is going to tell you that, what have you done? Till such time you don't arrive to a conclusion which is fitting into the societal success, block.
Actually, leadership is all about taking the toughest decisions, making those very tough decisions that are not easy to make. And that's when your emotional architecture comes into play, because, the best leaders, may suffer from insecurity, from fear, from desires, from greed. And these are the kinds of emotions that will actually prevent you from making your best decisions. A reflective understanding of yourself helps in these matters. Understanding oneself is not easy. Because we rationalize, we blame the best people, will blame others, blame circumstances. सर्दी खांसी सबको हो जाए, and we say, oh, आजकल germs इतने हो गए हैं, bacteria इतने हो गए हैं, और monsoon season आता है तो वे बीमारियां तो फैली जाती हैं. But ये जो external, these germs and the bacteria are there for everyone.
Yeah.
Why are you not getting that sardi and I get that sardi? So it's not just about externality.
Yeah.
There is something within me that is weakening my immune system, and there's something within you which is preventing your immune system from weakening. Now, what is it that is weakening me? What are autoimmune disorders? They are all based in suppressed, unchanneled, and misunderstood emotions. I do feel an emotional understanding of ourselves as well people around us is very, very important. I was reading a book by David Brooks the other day, and he talks about people who are either diminishers or they are illuminators.
Yeah.
So diminishers are those who make other people feel small, feel unseen.
Right.
Illuminators are those who are curious about others, who want to understand others, who really see other people, who bring out the best in other people. I remember a very lovely story I read in the book about Winston Churchill's mother. When she was young, when she was dating, before she met Winston Churchill's father, she went out on a date with William Gladstone. And years later, she told her son that she came back home that evening with the feeling that she has met the most intelligent man in England, William Gladstone. She was so impressed with him. A few days later, she went out on a date with Benjamin Disraeli. And years later, she told her son that she came back home from that date with a feeling that she is the most intelligent person in England.
Yeah.
And that's the magic.
Yeah.
Because each of us, are capable of our best. But are we able to draw out the best in ourselves as well as others around us? It's about seeing people. Do I see you? Do you see?
Wow. This is so beautiful. I am fascinated now to know what was your childhood like, because this is the best conducive literary environment that I can think of. You mentioned in the book about your paternal grandfather. And this is amazing because he was scholar of Sanskrit and was teaching maths and physics in Banaras Hindu University. And on the other side, you have your grandmother, who was a teacher in Gwalior and scholar of scripture and traditions. This is goldmine as a family, right? Your childhood was like what?
No doubt we were lucky when it came to, our childhood. But Poonam, I will talk about my childhood in a bit. But I will say that as Indians, we are all lucky. We all are born in households that are steeped in our culture, in our past. We are, a culture that goes back thousands of years, and we have continued.
Yeah.
So our collective memory goes back millennia, and all of us are born into those stories, that are told to us by our nani and our dadis and our buas and our masis. Lovely stories from our Ramayana, our Mahabharata. It is said that no Indian listens to the Ramayana for the first time.
Yeah.
We are all born knowing those stories. And I don't just speak for the Hindus. I'm speaking about, in Christians, Indian Muslims, we are born in this cultural ethos. Colonial education created a severance between ourselves and our roots, especially in our schools. I think we are living in a very wonderful era where we are going back.
Yeah.
Yes. And, we are celebrating, we made the world celebrate the Yoga Day during the, South Solstice.
Yes.
21st
June.
Yes. And I think not just our way, the pagan ways are becoming interesting once again all over the world. The UK is going back into its, rediscovering its pagan way of life. I traveled to Egypt 2 months back. And I'll share this quick story with you. I had traveled as a part of, our my philosophy school. So we were a bunch of 32 wannabe philosophers along with our teacher. And we had gone to Egypt, and the vice president of the Tourist Association of Egypt himself was our tourist guide. And it was a wonderful experience. We were going from place A to place B at one point. And, our guides, Jisoo, shared the story about how, in childhood, his grandmother used to frighten him with this ancient Egyptian myth, wherein if you're not the right, if you're not a good boy, then there is this goddess Anbit, who's, I think, half hippopotamus and half crocodile, who eats up your heart if you're not a good boy. So his grandmother used to tell him that, Jisoo, if you don't eat up your meal, goddess Anbit will eat up your heart. Shared that charming story with us. One of us asked him that, do you still in your homes discuss those old stories of ancient Egypt, because, it's a 99% Muslim country. And Jisoo said that lovely statement. He said, we changed our religion. We didn't change our ancestors.
So well, yeah.
I forgot that family did.
Coming back to your childhood, this was such a beautiful, yeah. I mean, that's what legacy is all about.
Yes.
Constantly, this conversation of, I'm so fortunate to be doing this conversation with you, but when I'm gone, everyone is gone. This is going to be there on YouTube, hopefully. So that's what legacy is also about, right? You leave some footprint that can make the world a little better place. I think everybody is just trying to do our little bit. And authors have a huge, huge responsibility, because this is something which is going to be there, today also when we are going back. We are looking at scriptures, we are looking at those writings, we are looking at, and this is such a gold mine that is left for the world over, right? Whoever generations ahead. So knowledge is such a the only powerful tool, I believe. And through this podcast also, the knowledge that you have in life, that you have been giving out to the world through your books, is something that I wanted for people who now are tuning into listening to such conversations. Philosophy, there was a time I remember I grew up in 90s sort of, right? 90s kid. And philosophy for us used to be, you're not good at anything, that's why you're talking about philosophy. And I'm sitting with somebody who cleared IAS exam. So first we will deal with your childhood, and then we will come to the love part. What were your conversations in your dinner table, your 4 siblings, and your brother Amish is, if there is one author that young generation looks up to, releasing a book is Amish's books, The way he has that amazing ability to, communicate. As you said, these characters are going to be there in my head. I can say Dharmaraj, Nachiket, Gargi, Lopamudra is right there. And what I loved about when I was going through the book is I felt I am also sitting the way we are sitting. These 4 are talking and I'm also there. That was my feeling. Because, there was a time when I felt like I have a question I want to ask. Who should I ask? And then I thought, let me park those questions because that has to come to you. So how was your childhood? Is it, we speak about Sanchit Karmas. You are born in a family, because what is that whole concept? I'm very fascinated to know from you about it. And then how your childhood was with such literary environment of scholars as your grandparents.
My grandfather in Banaras, he was a professor, as you said, math and physics in Banaras, Hindu University. But, every Saturday, he went to the Tulsidas Ji Mandir on Asti Ghat, and he read passages from the Ramayana, and people would just come and sit and gather. And he would read a certain passage and then explain it and have a discussion on it. We grandchildren used to go, along and have these discussions. My eldest Pua, I lost her at the age of 94 recently. She was a medical doctor, and she was married, when we were children. And she would come home and she would dress all of us children in various garbs, just like that. One is Arjun, one is Sri Krishna, one is Draupadi, one is Yudhishthira. And just enact, dramas and then have discussions. So discussions were really the flavor and enactments of our childhood. My father was... God bless his soul. And he was really an intellectual giant. And he would ask us the most amazing questions at the dining table. For instance, he asked Ashish and Amish when they were, I think, 8 or 9 years old, whether relationships are driven by love or power, primarily. Now, fancy being asked that when you're 8 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even think of an answer today. If you were to ask me, okay.
Yeah. So, we were fortunate in that sense. our childhood was very enriched with our stories and our rituals and our customs. Yes.
That is so evident. That is so very evident. I want us to come to something which is very important in the book, and please allow me to refer. This particular line says that, and let me put it in a simple way, because not everybody, people who have read the book would be able to immediately relate to what I'm saying. But your mother, you give a reference to your mother in this book saying that we kept quiet though in certain conversation which were about how India has changed and stuff. As our mother had advised us to, she would often quote Lord Krishna to us, and one of the lessons we learned from Lord was, pick your battles with wisdom, fight from a position of strength. Lord Krishna said this, like, no two things about it. The question that I have in my mind, which is nagging me, is, in the world, which is a battlefield, powerful people and less powerful people. Having said that, a needle would become powerful when the need of the needle is there, and the sword will become powerful because it is a sword. When Lord Krishna says this, and in the real world, if you have strength, then my understanding of life, please help me correct that understanding or enrichen that understanding, which I believe would be understanding of a lot of people, naive people like me. If you are on the side of strength, then you will naturally not face too many struggles. Because especially in the corporate world, what happens is, when you are on the side of strength, you are powerful. Then of course you are powerful. Nobody is going to mess with you. The messing up happens with people who are less powerful. So in the given situation, something happens to me because I am not in the position of power. Two options in front of me. Do I wait then to come in the position of power and then take what generally people would say is a revenge, or now her time has come or his time has come? Or do I choose to be peaceful? What should be my dharma thinking when I'm not in the position of power?
Wouldn't the genius of our stories is they break away from the bounds of good and bad. Yeah. ये सही है, वो गलत है. ये इंसान सही, वो इंसान. There were positives in the Kauravas, and there were weaknesses in the Pandavas. Very clear. And yet, if at the end of Mahabharata, had the Pandavas lost,
bilkul. We can't see heroes losing.
So the thing is, but it breaks away from the bonds of good and bad. Duryodhana was a magnificent man also. He was very generous. He was a better eldest brother than Yudhishthir was. Dushasan, he earned Dushasan's respect much more than Yudhishthir was able to earn the respect, especially the.
Yeah.
So, good and bad is not so bad. And I think our, texts and our way of life teaches us that do what is best for that circumstance. Lord Krishna himself is also called Ranchorji.
Yeah.
So, leave the battlefield, live to fight another day. That's what Lord Krishna did.
Live
when winning is not possible. If the choice is between dying, and running away, live to fight another day. Right?
Correct.
That's what Lord Krishna himself, taught us. Ranchorji hai, right? Shakuni also had a story. We can learn from even Shakuni. Shakuni teaches us that tactical loyalty is sometimes important. when you don't have a choice, being practically loyal. You know, it may be cunning, but it may help you survive. You know, so and only a person who's in a situation knows how to handle that situation. When you're in a tough situation, our inner biology tells us fight, flight, or freeze.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? When it's a survival situation, I either freeze or I flee or I fight. But Dr. Pete Walker talks about the fourth, which is in a situation of challenge, fight, freeze, flee, or fall.
Oh.
Yeah. Chumchi ban jao. Survive karo.
This is something else. Yeah.
Live and fight another day. Because really, why should life be fair to me? Life is fair to nobody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Life is fair to nobody. Why should it be fair to me? Unfairness is in the very engineering of life. It's a design fact. Life is unfair. And when life is unfair, then strength respects strength.
Very much so.
You want respect, become strong. You know, and becoming strong is not chutki bajai strong ho gaya na.
Yeah.
Right? It's effort. And it's managing your mind correctly. Where wisdom comes in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You've got to be able to make wise decisions.
Yeah.
And learn from our ancestors and our stories. You know, these are ye bhandar.
Yeah.
ज्ञान का ही नहीं, विवेक का, भंडार है अपने पास. कैसे जीना है, ये कहानी हमें सिखाती है.
True.
इन्हें बोझे.
You answered very well to me that there was a reason for a book like this to come out. What are your new titles that you're working on now?
So after this, of course, we released Idols a few months back, which is on idol worshipping. Amish and I are working on a very interesting project. Our next project is, when we teamed up, we decided that we are going to write in 2 areas. One is, our way of life, spiritualism, Hinduism, and we've written 2 books on those. We have other projects as well. One of them actually is, emotions and our chakra body.
Wow.
But the next one is on the other kind of books that we write now, which is our culture. And Indian culture.
Yes.
But, every vast subject can be examined from one particular prism. That we are examining it from this prism. Is this the only prism through which it can be examined? No. There are other prisms, but we chose this prism. So from a particular prism, we are going to write on Indian culture.
I don't think we can just wait for... And the way you have been decoding, like, Dharma has been decoded so well in this book. Whenever in India we talk about, or anybody who's coming from the Indian culture, Dharma is always, the sibling becomes karma.
Yeah.
Karma and dharma. And that is how you also started in your book. As you rightly said, the prism could have different, dimensions, and one to look at a dimension. How would you explain to somebody who is not coming from Indian background, for example, the theory of karma?
Excellent question. Very challenging. Okay.
Please allow me to ask you one.
Okay.
I know you want to say that Poonam, I've written a book on it, but please, if you could decode.
Over a cup of coffee.
Right.
I pretend to attempt what is never and what is done. Okay. The Sanskrit word, the root is dhra, to mind, to hold. And as we were discussing earlier, has nothing to do with religion.
Right.
The Hindi word for religion is panth.
Hmm.
Dharma is the way to be. You know, each piece of life has a way to be. The sun, Surya, is a piece of life. It has a way to be. This cup is, has a way to be. You never to drop it and it would break. Then it would have lost its dharma, which is the way it is meant to be. Dharma is for each piece of life, not just human beings, patthar, ped, paudhe, जानवर, सूरज भगवान, Chandra Bhagwan. Dharma is, let's visualize it as the correct path. Then this is the best way for, let's say, bhavna to be. Or this is the best way for this cup to be. Karma is the action, the life playing out of that piece of entity. Am I rolling and potentiating in the best way to be, or am I losing the plot, or am I falling by the wayside, one way or the other, moving away from the balance and alignment and cohesion with which I was meant to live. Now that is in the hands of Karma. Karma, you mentioned Sanchit Karma. Swami Sivanand has talked about 3 types of karma. There's Sanchit, there is Prarabdha, and there is Agami. Let me explain the 3 through an example.
Yes, please.
Have you been to Paris?
Yes.
The Parisian streets are famous for the best madeleines.
Yeah.
Right? There's a story. Siddharth Mukherjee, the philosopher, author, oncologist.
Yeah.
He's
Yes,
celebrity intellectual. Wrote a book called The Gene.
Okay.
In which he explained the DNA very beautifully. And in The Gene, he writes that, events, experiences, emotions change our DNA. Okay. And these changes actually are inherited by our progeny. And he gave a beautiful example in his book, which is why I want to stick to madeleines. He said that, let us say, Sarah's grandmother, when she was 18, was walking down, this is an example by Siddharth Mukherjee. I'm paraphrasing it.
Sure.
Namak mirch laga rahi hu.
That's storytelling, by the way.
So, let's say Sarah's, grandmother, when she was 18, is walking down Champs-Élysées, let's say, with her boyfriend, who later who becomes Sarah's grandfather.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're young. She's 18, he's 19, and they're walking down this path. And as they pass a fabulous bakery, from where comes the whiff of freshly baked madeleines, the boyfriend goes down on his knees and proposes to his girlfriend. Okay? The grandmother now associates the aroma of madeleine with joy. All through her life, madeleine aroma is joyful, because that was the moment at which that experience when her boyfriend proposed to her. Amazingly, Siddharth Mukherjee says that this joy that she experienced with the aroma of madeleine was actually epigenetically woven into her DNA as a chemical tag. And later when she gives birth to her daughter finds madeleine ka aroma joyful. Her granddaughter, probably maybe born in India, never been to Paris, but never had madeleine. But the aroma of madeleine makes her joyful. And that is Sanchit Karma. So Swami Sivanand has said, Sanchit Karma is like the quiver full of arrows that are there. Your quiver is full of these arrows. One of those arrows is the aroma of madeleine, right? What is Prarabdha? Prarabdha Karma is Sarah. who did not have this experience, right?
Yeah.
It's the grandmother's experience.
Come to her.
Now, Sarah loves Madeline so much कि वो Madeline खाई जाती है, and obese बन जाती है. This is प्रारब्ध कर्मा. संचित कर्मा तो grandmom से आया.
Correct.
प्रारब्ध अब is the arrows that Sarah already has shot. निकाला, shoot किया. And what was each of these arrows? Madeline खाई जा रही है. Obese. What is Agami Karma? Agami Karma is the next arrow that I pick. जो मैंने तान लिया है लेकिन फेंका नहीं. वो है at the moment in time when Sarah decides no more Madeleines. वो है Agami Karma. संचित प्रारब्ध जो छूट गए और आगामी मेरे हाथ.
Where do you in time get that wisdom to take that decision? To switch?
You have to live a little to live a lot.
Yeah.
जिंदगी सिखाती है.
सिखाती है. वो, you have to go through that grill.
You have to live. Yeah. जिंदगी सीखने वाले को सिखाती है.
So where does that will come from? Some kids, if you see from the beginning, want to learn so much. They're intelligent. And some, after 40 years, will become intelligent. How this functions in terms of Sanchit Karmas? Or Prarabdha? Prarabdha.
Prarabdha and then taking Agami.
Next.
Next.
My will.
Now I take charge.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will, अभी अगर ये धर्म की का पथ है, तो कर्म मेरे ऐसे थे कि बार बार यहाँ पर
थपेड़े पड़ रहे हैं. Correct.
अब आगामी है, अब वापस सड़क के बीच में आने की कोशिश करें. So the question was that ये कहाँ से आता?
How do you get the will or willpower to switch to Agami?
So, life is movement.
Sorry, is that also destiny? The day you will decide that I get the willpower to...
Destiny और free will का थोड़ा tango होता है. Dance होता है. तो it's not our destiny. Destiny is संचित ना.
हाँ.
अब वो मेरी destiny में ही नहीं है कि Madeline की तरफ weakness मुझ में नहीं है.
Correct.
या फिर मेरी destiny और Madeline की weakness मेरे संचित में ही नहीं है. My grandfather had an arranged marriage with my grandmother. तो वो weakness मेरे संचित में ही नहीं है. तो मेरा संचित ही कोई और है. प्रारब्ध is the life I have lived till this moment. The thing is, life, Poonam, is movement. Life never stays still. Whatever I am today, a year from now, I will not be the same. Whatever I was last year, right now, I'm not the same human being. Life is movement. हम वैसे ही नहीं रहते. But ये movement का जो चक्कर है, ये movement ऐसे हो सकता है या ऐसे हो सकता है. और movement को, if today I am better than what I was this time last year, it's because I put in effort.
Yeah.
I put in will.
Yeah.
If today I decide I will put in no more effort, no more will, I will remain the way I am, next year I will be worse. क्योंकि वो नीचे गिरना निश्चित, उसमें effort नहीं लगता है.
Effortless.
Because life is movement. If you do not put in the effort to make yourself, to shine yourself, then becoming worse is a guarantee.
Yeah.
I mean, the sea.
Yeah.
Correct.
For the people who keep blaming they not getting opportunities, how do they understand that opportunities are to be somewhere sown yourself? You have to be, they say that you need to be at the right place, right time for right things to happen. Otherwise, everything is a struggle in life. And everybody has a struggle. Like, if you were to talk about our Prime Minister today, there were Prime Ministers before also. He has been doing certain things, but how much he has to take to constantly tell people that I am doing, I am proving. And that's the case in a miniature form for everyone in their own arena of reality. So when you feel, so for example, let me rephrase it. If for 2 years I don't get opportunities, 3 years I don't get opportunities, but I am लगे हुए हैं. To me or to that person, I am investing. I am investing in myself. I am building my skill set. But you know what? The God is not listening. What should be the mindset at that time when and you can't time that tomorrow is the success day. So the people who give up, what is that philosophical thought that you want to tell them can be cultivated further to strengthen the mind?
You talked about our Prime Minister, तो चाय वाले थे.
Yes.
और कहाँ पहुँच गए? He's the most respected, leader among the leaders of the Committee of Nations.
Yes.
He's come a long way.
Yeah.
But earlier we talked about life being unfair to everyone. Life doesn't owe fairness to anyone. Having said that, it's very easily said, because life sometimes is too unfair.
Yeah.
On some people.
Yeah.
Life is not equally unfair to everyone.
Correct.
And कुछ लोगों के हाथ जिंदगी कभी-कभी बेदर्द हो जाती है. What I would say to a person who's put in a lot of effort, अपने शेयर का सब किया है, is probably nothing at all. I would do this. Now, कभी-कभी इंसान को सिर्फ ये चाहिए. Life is tough, and sometimes life is very tough on some people.
Yeah.
तो हाथ पकड़.
That's all.
It will help.
It does.
Support with. हर समय हर इंसान को ज्ञान देने की जरूरत. This is powerful.
Yes. This is very, very powerful. At the human level, this is the most important emotion that possibly one can give to another. You so beautifully explained karma, and then you explained that you've written that in the book so beautifully. I will not be able to put it that amazingly, for people will have to read the book. But anything that is supposed to be in a way, in a form, and when it continues to be in that form, is on the path of dharma, is what you explained in the book. So it's a paradox for me. At the same time, we are constantly changing. तो कैसे चेक करें कि धर्मा में है कि नहीं है? And when to check? These are, you know what? This is, I'm actually telling you the soul of Nachiket is inside me because I'm sitting with you.
It's very tough. Very tough. Because, we get lost in our rationalizations.
Yeah.
And our blaming others.
Yeah. It's so easy.
Finding excuses. It's so easy. आजकल we live in a time when सबको ये self की बड़ी पड़ी है. Self-improvement, self-care, self-growth, self. Actually, the best signals that you get as to whether आप पद से भटक रहे हैं या नहीं are people around you. How I am is mirrored in the way people are with me. It's a signal. If you find that people are away from you, you find you're alone.
Yeah.
Check. If you feel everyone around you is wrong, check. सब तो गलत नहीं.
Correct.
If you find that people dislike you, check. Yep. Your reality is mirrored in the people around you, and they're giving you signals.
But one should be ready to accept that I need to do this check, reflection.
Yeah.
That's a good parameter, at least to start with. Correct. Point taken, absolutely.
I think one relationship that's extremely powerful in this journey is marriage.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Because, I think to some extent the primary purpose of marriage is not happiness so much as growth.
Mm-hmm.
You come into each other's lives to help each other grow. Are you a better person after your partner came into your life or a worse person?
How do you understand that? Everybody thinks they are best. Unfortunately.
Conversations, I think your partner is going to tell you a thing or two about your truth.
Which you should be ready to listen. It's like feedback. And nobody wants that feedback.
Yeah, with respect and love.
Yeah.
So I think marriage is a relationship of opportunity. It can help you grow or it can help you.
Yeah.
Spiral out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that understanding deepens when you start looking beyond, what we call Maya Jal. माया में तो हैं, फंसे हुए हैं, but वो उसको कैसे दूर रख के then we put that eye, as you rightly said in the beginning, that you are in the current, but you're swimming in the current and also observe it. So is philosophy for your mind to understand the difficult things easily?
Philosophy will help you understand that life is not easy.
And stop whining about it. As simple as that.
But philosophy will help you strengthen yourself to deal with it nevertheless.
So shouldn't this be in our curriculum for children?
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Our education system has, because of, the experience with our colonial history, has actually uprooted itself from our culture, our way of life. And सब है, लेकिन हम यूज नहीं कर रहे. प्राणायाम सिखाना चाहिए इसको.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
The time of 5 years old.
Yeah.
Because breath control is emotional control. Breath control is life control. तो सांस कैसे ली जाए. बच्चे को चलना सिखाते हैं, खाना सिखाते हैं, सांस लेना नहीं सिखाते.
Yeah, I don't think this is such an important thing that you're saying. How many people in this room ever thought? You think like सांस कैसे लेना होता है? You think like, do you even think कि सांस लेने का भी तरीका होता है? No, I don't.
And if you breath is the path to consciousness.
Wow.
Control your गुस्सा आ रही है जब, तो 3 लंबी सांसें ले लो. गुस्सा चली जाएगी. Watch yourself when you're angry, when you're scared, when fear is arising. You start taking short breaths.
Yeah.
You start breathing from your chest. Observe yourself. And आपको गुस्से पर काबू पाना है, लंबी सांसें लो. ये सब चीजें कोई सिखाए.
Yeah.
And इसे स्कूल में सिखानी चाहिए, हमारी कहानियां सिखानी चाहिए. To understand the difference between envy and jealousy. What better way to understand it but from the story of Duryodhana and Shakuni? Envy क्या होती है, jealousy क्या होती है? Envy is, I want what you have. Jealousy is, I don't want you to have what you have.
Which is a
Jealousy has malice.
Yeah.
Jealousy has malice.
Yeah.
Envy is desire. Duryodhana wanted the throne. That's envy. Shakuni is jealousy.
Yeah.
He's malice.
Yeah.
I want to destroy the group. I don't want them to have what they have. Now, how easily it can be understood through the stories of Duryodhana and Shakuni. And should it be understood? Yes, from the very beginning. So that we understand this body of, our emotions, so that we can get a grip on this. Anger is a common emotion. Underneath anger, there's always some other emotion. Anger is like घाव पे पपड़ी.
Just
Anger
right
is
in
not
the
a
surface.
Pure emotion, you know. वो पपड़ी को खोलो तो उसके नीचे या तो डर है, या फिर greed है, unmet expectations है, या घाव है, dर्द है, you know. Now, it's so powerfully understood through stories. And when we understand our emotional architecture as children, we'll be able to navigate life with much more proficiency.
Absolutely. I so agree with this. And this needs to be in the educational system, just the conversations that we are having. And in fact, I have never looked at Shakuni with this with this lens. Shakuni, as you said, Indian kids would always know Mahabharata and Ramayana, but then Shakuni is the bad uncle we knew, who knows how to play well. That's all.
But Shakuni also had a story.
Yeah.
You know, he also... Shakuni की कहानी थी. Do you know Shakuni's कहानी?
Not really.
Okay, let me tell you Shakuni's कहानी. It is रोंगटे खड़े हो जाएंगे.
Please.
कि हुआ क्या कि you know, गांधारी का विवाह भीष्म पितामह ने करा दिया धृतराष्ट्र से. And you know, when Gandhari was married to Dhritarashtra, you know, her family was not told. Like Dhritarashtra is blind,
Yeah.
you know, because Bhishma Pitama would keep doing all these things for the Guru Parivar's, you know, best interest. तो गांधारी का जब विवाह हुआ और जब Dhritarashtra discovered his blind, तो उन्हें एक पट्टी बांधी. And उसके बाद भीष्म पितामह को पता चला कि एक्चुअली गांधारी was a widow. अब ये कैसे? Because when she was born, okay, गांधारी की कुंडली में लिखा था कि गांधारी will become a widow in life. So what her father did was he got her married to a tree.
Yeah.
And then he killed the tree.
Standard process.
So technically Gandhari is a widow.
Yeah.
So technically
Oh.
धृतराष्ट्र से ये तो दूसरी शादी हो गई. तो भीष्म पितामह took it as an insult that you didn't tell us that she had already been married to a tree and this is a second marriage. So Bhishma Pitama, you know, went to Gandhari ka, you know, kingdom tha Gandhar, modern Kandahar.
Yeah.
So he went there and he captured Gandhari's father and Gandhari's 5 brothers. Shakuni was the youngest. Okay. And he जेल में डाल दिया. अब जेल में डाल के, क्योंकि वो तो अभी समझी थी ना, क्योंकि विवाह तो हो गया था, तो अभी डायरेक्टली तो मार नहीं सकते. तो कितने लोग थे प्रिजन में? फादर प्लस 5 ब्रदर्स, राइट? तो रोज खाना सिर्फ एक इंसान
Torture.
तो एक इंसान के लिए खाना जा रहा है. नेचुरली धीरे धीरे सब मर जाएंगे. तो एक दिन Gandhari's father calls on his sons and tells them that this way all of us will die. Now he tells 4 of his sons that they are all going to sacrifice and they are going to keep this youngest child alive.
Oh my God.
And you will one day, you know, हमारा बदला लोगे. And जो खाना आ रहा था वो सिर्फ शकुनी को खिलाया जा रहा था, सबसे छोटे बच्चे को. एक एक करके पिताजी मर गए. बड़ा भाई, सेकंड भाई, थर्ड भाई, fourth भाई. Actually the brothers you know, died first. Finally, when the father was dying, he just before dying, from his shield wand, he created the dice.
Oh my God. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And he taught the game to Shakuni and said, child, you know, vengeance shall. That is Shakuni's story. Now, suddenly when you know Shakuni's story,
I think it was
your
his dharma.
perspective on Shakuni changes.
Now this
क्या
becomes
कहानी
his
तो
dharma.
उसकी भी थी,
हाँ.
है ना? तो सही गलत है क्या? अब ये बच्चों को पढ़ाई जाए.
At least to open up the mind, because sometimes that's where the whole genesis of being judgmental comes in place, because we are constantly judgmental about everyone and we keep saying you are wrong, I'm
Not
right.
about ourselves.
That is what you have mentioned very beautifully, that it's always from the lens of you are wrong. We are always right.
बाकी सब गलत है.
बाकी सब गलत है. Correct.
And the fact is nobody is perfect. When it comes to me, it's a theoretical concept.
Yes. Yes. I think this also makes the life very easy.
Yeah.
The moment you put theory to it,
Yeah.
then we are not taking it as seriously as we would otherwise.
Yeah.
So, this is also a paradox because sometimes you would want your life to be very, very serious. You want to lead a serious life that I have goals. I'm serious about waking up early. I'm serious about doing this. This is my next level in the corporate world. I should work hard for my next, promotion. And at the same time, we are also saying that be on the path of philosophy so that the growth navigation becomes your Siri or Alexa to help you set things up. If I were to mini conclude it in a way.
So philosophy is serious.
Yeah.
But, really understanding philosophy opens your doors to the best humor.
Yeah.
When you can see life, when you could see yourself
Yes.
in all your ridiculousness.
And accept.
And learn to laugh. Look at the Dalai Lama, one of the biggest philosophers of planet Earth.
Yeah.
The man seems delighted all the time. Yeah, he's seeing humor everywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So his face is suffused with laughter all the time, isn't it?
And that's if we can only learn this skill. But yes, when we read books like these, it opens up so many horizons of thinking because you have now so many doors to at least enter. Otherwise, sometimes in the midst of when we are leading life, we feel this is it. There is no exit door is already decided, but then at least to move, some door should open, right? So, Bhavna ji, this brings me to a very Bhavna, this brings me, yes, this brings us actually to a very important part of this conversation. And I wanted us to arrive to this level because I also wanted to understand from you so many things and then come to this, which is more from the practical world point of view. So the question here is, which I actually could not gather much from the book, but is like troubling me. Is karma a number game? So there is a mosquito that is coming on me and troubling me. And I'm taking this example because whenever we talk about karma, killing the mosquito is the best example that people would want to know and understand from. So as a human being, I have several choices here. It is troubling me, I can shoo it away. It is troubling me, I can kill. And just say Narayan. The Narayan story that says, aapne uska udhar kar diya next birth mein. The mosquito only came to you because it wanted that udhar. The third is, I know that I have my close ones and my family. If I allow this mosquito to shoo away or kill is not an option. For example, if I feel that this is not my dharma, it will go and trouble my family. So when we face in real life situations like this, I'm coming from the backdrop of the corporate world and the business world. If I am suffering, I may be allowing other people to, from the empathetic point of view, but if I were to leave that empathy and become cutthroat, which everyone is, then I am killing the mosquito. How should I think? Should you kill the mosquito?
So, what you're really saying is, again, who's the best leader? The one who knows to be tough, the one who knows how to be even brutal if the situation requires it, Or do I just think of my own? Am I understanding your question?
Yeah.
Or should I just think, नहीं bad karma है, इस mosquito को नहीं मारना चाहिए. But I know कि anopheles है, malaria वाला है, लेकिन फिर भी मारना नहीं चाहिए, मैं ऐसे कर दूंगी. Or I know that यहाँ बैठा है, and अगर मैं ऐसे कर दूंगी, वो जाके यहाँ पे और किसी को काट लेगा, मलेरिया हो जाएगा, तो चलो मेरे and मार देते, right? So and those are the best leaders actually, who know how to make the toughest call. Karma is consequences. It's consequences, you know. So I must do what I must do right now. I must also be ready for the consequences.
Then won't I get afraid of the consequences while I'm taking that decision? How do I remove that fear?
The fear of not doing what you must do also has consequences,
Yeah, correct.
right? So karma has consequences. Whatever you decide will have consequences. Learn to live with those consequences.
And philosophy becomes that tool to help navigate those situations.
Live with the consequences, because there's no action that will not have consequences. Understand that. And consequences का कोई guarantee नहीं है that when you do what must be done, consequences will only be good.
Correct.
The consequences may be, the price may be very high, but what must be done must be done. It's like a soldier, you know, on the border.
Yeah.
And, what a magnificent embrace of karma.
Yes.
And that soldier at the border is going and embracing death, not for his father or his mother or his wife or his child, but for you and me, for all of us,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. जाके सवाब में वो जान दे देते हैं. तो what a magnificent consequence, you know, for that act of bravery. But consequence तो है. उनके बच्चे सफर करेंगे, you know, उनके माँ बाप सफर करेंगे. But they embrace that consequence. Everything is
In the right spirit. You said that sense does not penetrate anger. So, what is good anger and what is bad anger?
Good anger is boundary defined. You know, I define my boundary. कि यार अंदर मत आओ. I must be able to, you know, when you are encroaching my space, good anger, or let's call it healthy anger, is this. That's healthy anger. Maternal anger, you know, is healthy anger.
Yeah.
Maternal anger, mother's anger, is the anger that emerges from the urge to protect. So that's a magnificent piece of anger. If you're caught in chronic rage, you know, and your anger is spilling all over the place without any provocation, but as a result of getting triggered, then that will also have consequences.
Oh yeah. That's the keyword I'm going to take away with me: consequences. Be wary of consequences.
And you never know where the root of anger lies. You know, the root of anger, the root of all your worst, you know, and most debilitating emotions lie in our memory bank that we don't even consciously remember.
Correct.
Our experiences that we have had in the first month of our lives, first 5 months. Let me tell you this one story, you know, talking about fear and anger. Last April, I had gone to, you know, I'm going to paraphrase it. It's a true story, but I'm going to change, you know, the names and the place names, you know. I'm not going to use the real.
Sure.
Because it's a true story. I had gone to Corpus Christi in America to meet some friends. And my friends and I, one evening, we went for a walk. And as we were returning back home, from the other end, walking towards us was a young couple, American couple, with a little 3-year-old. And I'm going to change the name of the 3-year-old child.
Sure.
And they came and asked the little child, my friend told me his name is Emmanuel. And, you know, he came in and my friend went, Eva, come here. And he went and hugged her. And, you know, they introduced me to the couple, American with what was appearing to be a South American child. We came in And my friend told me this story that this American couple, they had adopted Ima from Ecuador. And Ima was found, out of a trash can as a 5-month-old baby. And he had been picked up by an NGO and, given to an orphanage. And this American couple had gone to Ecuador and they adopted Ima when he was 2 years old. So he was found in a trash can when he was 5 months old. And my friend told me that Ima is obsessed with trash cans. And at that time, he was 3 years old. And she told me that, Tuesday was a very big day in the life of this family. Because the trash can collecting, garbage collecting truck would come on Tuesdays. And all these trash cans would be lined, outside of all homes. And this lovely American couple, God bless them, they went from trash can to trash can. And they would sit on their haunches, leaving Ima to just look at the trash can and do whatever he was doing. Process your emotion. Process your emotion. And they did it every Tuesday with the child. I spoke to my friend a couple of months back because Eva turned 4. And they said they gifted him a trash can. He was 5 months old. You think he is consciously remembers?
Yeah, this is strange.
No, it's not strange. It's memory.
It's memory.
It's memory.
Cell memory.
Yeah, cell memory. Cell memory is great. Battling memory.
Yeah,
Sarah inherited it. The trash can memory. Ima has it. So, which is why self-understanding is so difficult.
Yeah.
Because our body, our emotions, our cells, remember what our conscious memory is incapable of.
Absolutely. And then we doubt.
And those are the roots of our chronic rage, our chronic anger, chronic fear, these emotions. So we human beings need a lot of...
Yeah, a lot of this. And a tight hug also most of the times from the people we can trust.
Yeah.
So I noticed something very beautiful in the book where it says that trust but verify is not trust. In today's time, most of the relationships are falling in the trap of, because of digitalization also, because there is so much which is not us out there. There is something else on social media. There is something else who we are. We are feeling different. We are posting something else and posing to be in a different... How do one understand the process of verifying trust? Should a trust be blind, as we always know, or it should be verified?
Trust is a hard thing.
Yes.
It's a hard thing. Trust is not a mind thing, which is not to belittle the mind, but to understand the nature of trust. Trust needs strength. Trust needs boldness. Trust needs vulnerability. Before we discuss trust, let's separate the personal from the public.
Sure.
Because it's not all the same.
Yeah.
In the personal space, trust is making yourself vulnerable. The key word is vulnerable. Do I have the strength, the courage to make myself vulnerable? From a position of strength, because the verification comes when your trust is broken.
Absolutely.
Till your trust is broken, how do you know that your trust will be broken? You can only know whether your trust will be broken or not broken once you trust with the heart. Then once you make yourself vulnerable, have the strength to make yourself vulnerable, and have the strength to pick yourself up if that trust is broken. But if you are fearful that if I trust, my trust may be broken, then we will not taste the true sweetness and the possibilities of close relationships. And it's not just between a man and a woman. It can be between siblings. It can be between you and Shiv, your nephew.
Yeah.
You know, this is a personal space. So how do you know that, how does Shiv know that you are worth trusting? And to a child, making himself vulnerable comes very easily.
Yes.
Very easily. When we grow up, it becomes tough. I mean, Shiv is just going to be on that dining table and you and I are talking and he will just scream, Mossy cat, and he will jump.
Yeah.
That is trust, because he knows Mossy is going to jump over and that catch Shiv. He knows that is trust because he's made himself vulnerable. And if your trust is broken, don't lose the lesson. Don't lose the lesson. But does that mean that one fortifies oneself?
Yeah. I was going to ask.
That depends on, there are no fixed answers. There are no fixed answers because I have to be able to see you. Did you break my trust intentionally?
Yes, intention.
Or did you break my trust without meaning to break my trust?
How do you
Because we are
judge
all human.
that?
Because we are all human.
Or let me rephrase. We are not judging. I learned in the book.
Yeah.
How do we understand that? It takes time to learn.
Reflection.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time.
Reflection, a lot of learning. Be open to learning from those around you. Of course, in the public realm out there, I would say trust but verify. So if in the personal space, trust requires vulnerability. In the public place, trust requires strength and authenticity. Be your authentic self. And then trust but verify.
Correct.
Or verify and then trust. But do not abandon trust completely from the public space. Because you may need to verify Chirag before trusting him. But if you just keep trust out of the equation completely in your interaction with Chirag, then even in the public space, you may not be able to realize your best professional relationship.
Yeah. It hampers the productivity.
It hampers productivity. So, and to do away with the possibility of trust completely emanates from fear and insecurity. So work on that fear and insecurity. Where is the root? Why am I fearful? Why am I insecure? It doesn't have anything to do with Chirag. No. No. And if you understand that your inability to trust has nothing to do with Chirag, keep Chirag out of that equation.
Absolutely. That mindfulness is needed here.
And there are blood relationships and there are heart relationships. And when we learn to give trust a chance, maybe one day you can be as close to Chirag as you are to a sibling.
Correct.
Why do away with the possibility of beautiful and enriching relationships, even in the public?
In today's world, relationships have I'm a little bit deviating from the world we are talking about, which is cutthroat and business and corporate. Family is vulnerability, is what I also believe, that you don't have any parda when you're in front of your family. You're just who you are and take it or leave it. It's like that. Your attitude is also like that, But in the public would mean anybody who's not your sibling or your parents becomes, even in the friend circle, because with your timeline of life, people keep changing. And lucky are the ones who could, start with in the childhood. I have this friend, this friend remains with me today also. But I see that youngsters have become extremely vulnerable to their emotions today. They are very hyperly, not emotional, but aggressive to a certain the tonality that comes out is aggression, because they take very fast decisions without. So what I'm trying to say is the Sahanshilta was much stronger in a different generation, and millennials, to so to speak, they still, because they had some values and culture which was infused in them. But I see, and that's why even their work relationship is loyalty is very less. It takes them 2 minutes to resign and go. They may pretend to be very trustworthy, they may pretend, but that behavior is ingrained. It's not a behavior only for work and opportunities. It's a behavior. This then slides down into their relationships. So in one of the instances where Gargi is talking about relationship, and I saw that beautiful camaraderie between Nachiket and Gargi, they keep teasing each other. Husband-wife tease is going on, which is very beautiful. So she goes on to explain the trust factor. What would be your message to the younger generation? For example, as you said, verify and trust. If the verification goes wrong, trust is broken. I was in a relationship and now I am. For example, the same thing could also happen to somebody who you trusted in your organization. Trusted, like, for example, you have to trust your senior at least for a year, because now this is going to be my appraisal time and you committed certain things to me. And now you have to give those things to me because I trusted you. I gave 1 year of my life to you. The same is the case. And yeah. So when that trust is broken, it's very difficult to come into that same emotional strength full position where you can trust fast. How do you navigate such emotions easily? What would be your message to the younger generation?
I do find that the young, in many ways, are far ahead of what someone from my generation was at that age. There are sparks of amazing wisdom. There are sparks of amazing self-confidence and comfort in their skin, which took people from my generation, decades, to master. I feel there is one very challenging phenomenon in the life of the youth of today, which is social media.
Right.
Thank God, me and even you, we are a generation whose early childhood had no social media.
Not at all.
Thank God.
Thank God, seriously.
Choose the absence of opportunity.
But for good.
तो बिगड़ते क्या?
Yeah. Yes.
And social media is, I will use that word, it's dangerous. What social media is doing to the very young today is it's divorcing them from the business of actual living and relationships. Every child is
on a screen. Yeah.
And relationships, and my relationship with you cannot flower over WhatsApp messages. My relationship with you can only flower when you look into my eyes and I look into your eyes, and we communicate and we get each other's body language and signals and not just words. Words are a very puny form of communication. Social media, its algorithm itself is designed to tap into our reptilian brain and our addictive ways of behavior. The youth do not have the space to even make mistakes and learn from their mistakes, because the mistakes are too costly today.
Yeah.
Because even as a 15-year-old, you make a mistake and it's there in the post out there.
Yeah.
Your grandchildren are going to see them one day. You and I were silly when we were 14 and 15, I mean, nobody knows our stories, least of all our potential grandchildren, right? And wisdom takes time. I mean, how do you expect a 14 or a 15-year-old to have the wisdom that a 40-year-old will have? So social media is a terrible, terrible double-edged knife that the children today are living with, and they are losing the essence of living. Life is lived online. Your those selfies, and I spoke to my niece because my niece had started posting her filtered images.
Oh, okay. That's a trend.
And I had a conversation with her, and I said that, Beta, you will start living for those likes.
Yes.
And it will start playing horrible games with your self-esteem. And not only that, remember these spouting, images that you're putting, in the world out there. You're going to be 50 one day. You're going to be 60 one day. And, your children and your grandchildren are going to see that. Put yourself in those shoes. Would you want your grandchildren to see those photographs? And it was, fully dressed, nothing, but just, the little, what youth does these days. Thankfully, she listened to me.
The in thing. We call it the in thing.
Yeah.
So then everybody goes mad around it.
Yeah. Friendships, they don't experience the essence of friendships. Dating has become so high stress. The challenge to a large extent is social media.
Correct.
And we have to rediscover, moving our phones away and rediscover the essence of relationships.
And come back to books, I think.
And come back to books.
That's the most important thing. I also propagate that a lot. I wish I was pushed into books much earlier, which I had to do, and books that are meaningful to understand life a little better. And not just what we keep on reading, In fact, I've started gifting books to everybody who I meet. That, I think you should read this book. This is very nice. If I see somebody coming to me for anything, I will always keep one book and I think you should read this book. That's the best thing you can do if they start reading.
Yeah. Also, if I may, the power of boredom.
Yeah.
These days, people want some stimulus or something to do all the time.
Instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
Yeah.
Sit and stare at the sky for half an hour. It will provide fuel to your imagination.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you don't just sit and stare at the sky. You're on the phone all the time.
I will not be able to exactly tell you the business problem that I faced, but huge issue needed immediate attention. And I have started running to books such as these because all I have to do is just, as you rightly said, you're swimming, remove yourself from swimming and look at it. All I had to do is switch my brain to something totally different. And just 5 pages of this book, and I get back and there is a solution that is at least happening. So I have started finding a huge mentor in books such as these so that you can run back and at least some door opens, if not all, and then your whatever wisdom you have or whatever, at least you're able to put something on the table. Sometimes you feel, oh my God, it's a dead end. So this becomes that opening, the door opener. Pavna, this brings me, I actually want to talk to you for another 2 hours. There are so many things to be, we'll end up just talking about the whole book right now. And then there is another beautiful book which I can see here. I hope I am able to, this book is something that I have to start reading and learning from it, which I will definitely do. But before we close this conversation, wow, Unearthing the Power of Murti Puja. This is also Amish and Bhavna Roy's book, which is going to be my very precious next read. I want to close this conversation at a very high note. And we say that there is only one life which we can experience. And there are people who don't even experience that entire life fully. And I was also one of them in the sense that I can't really brag about that I have started, but at least I have started thinking on those lines. That just the career goal is not the only goal. There has to be several other goals which can make you feel good when you are ending the day, and go with the day. Go with this day as like I talking to you, which is this date, is going to be a very precious memory in my head that we met, we spoke. And this must give me that gratification, which is a human gratification that we all should be looking at, achieving when we meet new people. So my last bit of question to you would hover around this, that how do you see, have you lived your life? Where is your life? How do you feel in your life? With so many things happening. You can take your time.
There's a lot of gratitude, for the life I have had. No life is easy.
Yeah.
No life is only difficult. In the personal realm, I've been blessed. Especially with the men in my life.
Yeah.
I had enabling parents. I have brothers who are rocks, and beautiful sisters-in-law who are my sisters. And most importantly, lovely wives to my brothers. What's the most important thing you want from your puppies?
Right.
Be good wives to my brothers, and my brothers should be, in turn, good husbands to them. I was married to a magical man. He was magic. I really, really lucked out. 27 priceless years. Not only were they filled with love and joy and a lot of laughter, they were filled with a lot of learning. It's been 6 years since I lost him, and I don't think of him as my husband anymore. He's become my guru, my Ishtadev. He's the go-to person. Whenever I'm confused, I'm faced with a conundrum, I ask myself, what would he do?
Yeah.
And the answer is instantly crystal clear. Life, most importantly, continues to be kind. I have lost my partner. I very nearly sank, into pools of depression. But life continues to be kind, and I have a lot more living to do.
Yes. I wanted to ask you that question in the beginning, that what was the magic that happened that you left after clearing? There are today in India, in UPSC, at least 1 million children who sit for the exam, and fortunate 1,000, or maybe depends on how many openings are there. I mean, on a scale of 1 million to 1,000 people who get selected, that is UPSC. You passed IAS and then you met your Krishna. Let's talk about the good time and finish this conversation with that beautiful moment that you faced. It reminds me of the Paris story now. Was it Sanchit Karma?
Yes. There was no confusion in our mind. Isn't
that rare?
Yes. My reality. He was in IPS. I got to the IAS. And, to begin with, at that time, it was a cadre problem. He had Maharashtra cadre. I got Tamil Nadu cadre. And I was very clear in my head, I want to live with the man I love, And in hindsight, I never regretted it, in my life. I mean, I used to often say leaving the IAS was the second smartest decision of my life. The smartest decision was marrying the man I did. But especially after losing him, it's so clear to me that in my destiny had not given me a lifetime with him. And whatever part of my life was with him, I didn't waste my time.
Yes.
I was with him. I will be यहाँ कलेक्ट हूँ वहाँ हूँ nothing. जो वक्त मिला पूरा उसके साथ किया. Because had it not been so, I would have had great regrets.
Yes.
Now, जिंदगी में पूरी नई थी और फिर जितनी मिली उसमें मैं क्या करता हूँ इधर.
I so wish this level and this quality of love for everyone who's watching this interview with you today. I'm so blessed to be talking to you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bhav, for all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.